Hello and welcome to the Lawyer Assistance Program's bi-monthly job seeker group. I'm Heidi Seligman, one of the program therapists, and I'm very proud to welcome back today's presenter, Paul Anderson, who is returning for his 6th time to our program. Paul is the founder of ProLango Consulting and is also a nationally recognized speaker on career transformation. He has been published in the Seattle Times, as well as the Wall Street Journal and USA Today, and has had a show on Como News. Paul will be sharing his advice and expertise on putting technology such as LinkedIn to best use in your job search. The Lawyer's Assistance Program also offers a weekly job group, and the next one starts on Monday the 16th, and we still actually have a few openings. So if any of you are interested in that, please feel free to contact any one of our program staff for more information. And now I'd like to please welcome Paul.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Appreciate it. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. Well, I'm glad and very honored to be here today, especially for you guys that are watching us on the webcast or maybe in recording at a later time. Sorry we couldn't meet, but hopefully the information is still useful. There's two big problems going on right now. Two big problems. I'm going to try to solve both of them today. Problem number one is, and depending on when you watch this recording at home later, people are unemployed for an average 38 weeks, which is 9.5 months. And if you do the income, especially you guys attorneys make a lot more money than the average American, that's a huge, huge lost income opportunity. So that's one problem. So what I'm going to try to talk about today with today's presentation, Strategic Job Search, is how do we shorten that? How do we shorten that 9.5 months, maybe to something as short as 3 months or maybe even shorter if you play your cards right? So that's problem number one. Problem number two, which is even a bigger deal that I'm very passionate about solving, and I'm going to spend my entire life doing it, it's my life's purpose, is depending on which survey you look at with human resources, and I think Manpower was the recent one that came out with, 86%, up to 86% of professionals are unhappy in their current jobs, with the current companies that they're with. That they said if there was another job opportunity, they would leave in a heartbeat. And that's a huge percentage of people that are unhappy. And if you look at other surveys that Human Resources has done, they ask why is that? And when you look at how most people go about job searching, they do something called tactical job search, not strategic job search. So today, how about we try to solve both problems by helping you find the job that's actually a really, really good fit for you. So then you don't join the 84% or 86%, you join the 14% of the happy people that are employed but really happy to be there. And the second thing is how do we optimize your search as fast as possible. You are welcome and encouraged to ask questions throughout the presentation. If there's anything you want me to demo on LinkedIn, I prefer to do that at the very end, so we do all the demos together. But any questions on clarifying or specific situations, I think Heidi has a microphone and she's going to walk up so that everybody in the audience can hear you. All right, let's get started. So let's talk about where most people are finding jobs today. And this is a national survey by Right Management, which is one of the largest outplacement companies in the world. And they asked people in the very recent months, how did you guys find a job? And it's interesting, 25% of folks found a job by applying online. Now this is again across the country, not Washington specific. In Washington, the number's closer to 17%. So a lot less folks here find jobs by applying online, but it is definitely one avenue. Newspapers are interesting. 1% of folks found jobs through classifieds, and I think we have the Seattle Times here that's keeping that running, but that's obviously dwindling. Now, the biggest pie chart here is networking and direct contact with the employer, and that comprised over half. And in Seattle, where we're more of a relationship town, that number's even much larger. Depending on which expert you quote, they say up to 85% of professionals in the Seattle market find jobs through relationships. And my experience working with 12,000 professionals in the last 5 years can validate that. I can see that that's very true. A lot of our clients, some of them get lucky and they get a job on Craigslist or Indeed or Simply Hired, but a lot more of them, they make direct contact with, let's say, Foster Pepper or with another top law firm, and they develop a relationship with the senior partners, right, or the managing partners, and that's how they get the jobs. And so we want to focus on that. Now, to back this up, I want to show you something that might be less obvious when you think of applying to a company. This is a ladder that you have to climb if you decide to apply online. And the very beginning of that ladder is a system called the applicant tracking system. If an employer is maybe a one-man shop, like just a firm with one person in it, they may not need an applicant tracking system, but I'm assuming those aren't the companies you're going for. Now, a company that's probably 5 or larger, and they're posting, we have these attorney openings, we have these, paralegal openings of some sort like that. When they receive applicants, it's hard to manage those in their email account, like their Outlook inbox or an Excel spreadsheet. So for very inexpensively, they can purchase an applicant tracking system. You can get them as low as $50 a month, which is basically a sanity database, right? How do you keep sane with all these people applying? It captures some interesting stuff about you, your resume, where you live because your address is on your resume, what jobs you applied for, when you applied, what other jobs did you search for on that specific company's website. So it's interesting stuff. But the point is that a system you have to go through before a human being ever looks at your application. If you're successful, which is very difficult to beat the ATS, but if you're successful, you're still not there. You're going to now be reviewed by some sort of recruiter at that company. Now, Foster Pepper or other larger law firms have actual recruiters, but this could also be delegated to an outside agency to say, please assist us in sourcing talent. So that's the second level that you have to. So we're going through this ladder, we're climbing that as a second filter. And if you pass that, which is very difficult to do, then and only then will you be reviewed by a hiring manager. So if you notice, part of why it's taking someone 9.5 months today to get unemployed or to find employment is partly because most people, when they see the job ad, they apply online. Is that what you guys do? I'm just curious. Anybody not apply online, do something different? Yeah? What do you do? Okay, so you mostly do through contacts. Now, have you tried applying online? And then what happens when you do that? Okay, so when you apply online, what she's saying is when you apply online, you don't hear anything back. And that's most people's responses. So what we mean today, the definition of strategic job search, is how do we change you from applying online to maybe doing a few things in advance for, again, solving two problems. Problem number one, optimizing, shortening that transition time. Problem number two, hopefully finding the job with the company that you actually want to be affiliated with, where the culture, the work-life balance, the opportunities for growth happen to match the kind of career desires that you have. So let's go to the next component. How do we make that happen? Well, I think, and we have some psychologists in here, I think happiness starts with values, right? If you think about like two people that are going through a divorce, and we had to do this as a test case with marriage counseling. There's a couple going through a divorce. So the psychologists, they put people in two separate rooms, the husband and the wife in two separate rooms, and they said, let's kind of look at your values. Let's look at some of the values and see where there might be some potential conflicts. So they asked the husband. They said, let's pick a category in your life, like going on vacation. They said, when you go to let's say Hawaii, what's most important to you? And the guy said, I want to jump out of an airplane. That's what I want to do. If we go to Hawaii, I want to do the daring things I don't get to do in Seattle because Seattle's so boring. It rains all the time. I want to go do something fun. They said on the Big Island there's that the volcano, and you can walk by the volcano. And then there's this do not cross sign. He's like, I want to cross that. I want to see what happens. So that's what the husband said. What's most important to him was adventurous type activities. Then they went to the wife and they said, so when it comes to, let's say, traveling to Hawaii, what's most important to you? And she said, I want to sit by the beach, and I just want to maybe have the family come together. We're so busy in Seattle, everyone's working or going to school. This is our chance to bond, and I want to maybe we find shells together. Maybe let's go do shopping. So you have someone that's talking about adventure, and there's someone that's talking about shopping, and you're wondering how do these people even meet to begin with, and how do they even get married? Well, I have to teach the females in this room a little secret about us guys. And sorry, guys, for letting the females know about our secret. We are able, as guys, to customize our resume to land the partner that we want, right? Meaning we will somehow, when we take our pants off, we'll actually properly hang it up in the closet. We'll wipe the toilet seat after ourselves. We'll be this proper person that brings you breakfast in bed. We'll be this dream person you've been looking for, right? The Hollywood figure. And what we'll do is we'll customize our resume and we'll get the job. And that's what I notice a lot of job seekers do. is they customize their resume. They try to appeal to the needs and the values of the employer. But what happens, though, here's the thing. You can't fake it for too long because your natural unconscious habits and motivations are going to come out, and you're going to leave your pants on the floor. You're not going to make breakfast in bed anymore, and you may leave the toilet seat up. And then the wife says, he's changed. I got to change him back, right? And there's this constant conflict and battle, and basically it's a lose-lose scenario. It's a losing proposition. Same thing with employment. All of you can convince the employer to hire you. The question is that the right fit for you? So what are good marriages? How do those succeed? How does a marriage in a job situation succeed? Is when your values happen to be very aligned with the company. Because we're being recorded, I won't mention the company here in Seattle, but this is a very, very large company in Seattle, and they're a technology company, so there's lots of them, so you can probably guess who it is, or maybe you won't, so that we have attorneys in the room, right? So this large technology company is known for burning out talent. You'll work 60 hours a week, not because you want to, because that's the minimum you have to put in just to get the fair review. If you want a decent review, we're looking at 80 hours or more. Now, if you're single, you're pretty young, you don't have a social life, maybe that makes sense. Maybe you're really happy because if you went home, there's nothing there, so you want to be at work. But what if you're older? What if you're established? What if you have a spouse, you have children? That doesn't make sense anymore. Now, down the street, there's another technology company, very equally prestigious, and they send people home at 5 o'clock. And we asked them, why do you guys do that? They said, well, because people have to go home and they have to recharge their batteries. If they don't spend time with their children, with their spouses, with their personal needs and desires, they're not going to be on the next day. And so both companies, they approach the productivity really differently, right? One of them is going to make you really, really happy as an employee. The other one, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be the 86% that says, I have a paycheck, but I feel stuck to it and I'm really miserable. So how do we solve this problem? It starts by thinking strategically about our careers, right? And I think it's something we need. If you look at college, right? You finish college. Most of us say, I need to find an internship. I got to find my first job. I got to get out of my parents' house. Or I got to find some form of income. I got 6 months. I got to start paying all my student loans. And we take something, and then we take another thing and take another thing. And years later, we look back and say, is this what I want? Right? Now, if you belong to a religion where you get to come back in another life, I guess that's okay, right? Because you can always have it better the next life. But if your religion does not support afterlife and you get to come back, this is it. Life's very short. Let's maximize those happiness opportunities. So I have some examples of values for you here. And every one of us has different needs. Some of us are motivated by extrinsic values. And I'll have examples, and you already have a copy of the slides, so you can look at some of those. Some of us may be motivated by type of like security-based values or social values. So here's some of the examples. Extrinsic is focused on the money and the benefits, more the financials. I want to work at a law firm where the billable is $500 an hour because there's a certain lifestyle that I want to have, and that's what drives me. Other people may say, you know what? I don't care so much of the high income as long as I get to keep the income. So I'll actually take something lower as long as it's really stable, which unfortunately, there's not a lot of stability in today's economy, but that's what some people want. Other people are, I want to have an opportunity for creativity. We had this engineer at Honeywell, actually. He came to see us. He's a principal engineer. And he said, Paul, I'm making really good money. I'm at the top of the food chain, but I'm unhappy. And I said, what's going on? He's like, I want to be creative. And so I said, did you talk to your boss? So he's like, yeah, I went to him. I said, boss, I want to be creative. I want to do things out of the box. He said, here's the thing. Be creative, but do it the Honeywell way. Right? So like be creative, but don't be creative because our organization doesn't support that. So he's unhappy. He's looking for a job, not because he needs a job, but because the job is not currently meeting his needs. So look at that. Is the firm that you're going to join, is it going to give you those, if those values are important to you or not? The next one's influence. Some people want to have a lot of power. If you watch, who's watched Suits? Just curious. The Suits, the law show. You guys don't watch TV? Guys, you got to go watch that. No, it's fun. Very entertaining. It's this attorney that faked himself. He's actually really good at passing the bar, but he's not an actual practicing attorney, and he goes to work for a law firm. It's a really interesting journey. But his boss, he's the power guy. He wants to have power over others. And some of us reach a point in our career where influence matters, right? The other one is helping others. This is something that I wanted when I worked at companies like Microsoft and Expedia in my career. this was a need that was not being satisfied. I was helping a lot of computers, I was helping a lot of software, but I wasn't helping a lot of people. And what I get to do for the last 5 years at Prolango is, help influence someone's career and help them change their lives, and so my needs are being met, right? And so sometimes maybe that's what you want. And then the other ones are social, like enjoying one's coworkers. One of the biggest reasons we leave a company or we're dissatisfied with a company is we don't like our boss, right? So your managing partner or your senior partner, or you don't like your colleagues, right? They're just that who they are as a person is not resonating with you. And so maybe that's important. And last but not least is leisure, right? Having opportunities for vacation and time off. Maybe that work-life balance component, right? So the question is, and I'd like you to take a moment and kind of go through some of these and say, what are the ones that are most important to me? If I could pick like 3, you're not going to get everything in life, but if I could get 3 in this next law firm or this next corporation, like if you guys want to be an in-house counsel, Microsoft is radically different from Amazon, and both of them are not good. No, I'm just kidding. No, they're really not good, both of them. But one of them is going to be a little bit better for you than the other one, but I can't give you that answer until you decide what's our most value. So if you're at home watching this, and if you're here today, please take a moment and kind of pick through these. Let's see what you come up with. This is what we mean by like strategic job search, right? The word strategic is you have a goal in mind and you come up with a plan to make that goal happen, right? So what does that mean to you? Right? What is that career opportunity? What does the word strategic mean to you, right? And so I think it starts with our basic psychology, our actual needs as a human being. And are those needs going to be satisfied, right? Because I'm going to show you how to get a job today and how to get as fast as possible. But I want to make sure that you get the right job, right? The one that's fulfilling and the thing that hopefully is going to be, you're really happy to be there, right? All right, so let's hear from the audience. What did you come up with? Just curious. And I can repeat this one since there's 1 or 2 words. Yeah, so whatever you say, I'll just repeat so everybody can hear you. What's most important to you? I'd like to go first. Yes. Stability. So that's really important to you. Okay, what's the second most important to you? Say again? Income. Okay, so stability and income. So if I found you a job or you found a law firm where they give you lots of room for creativity, you get to work from home, but because maybe they're more the entrepreneurial type law firm, but there's no stability, you don't know if they're going to be there tomorrow, and they don't pay a lot, that's probably not going to be the most desirable job opportunity for you, right? Now, you know what's really interesting? He's saying this now. What I'm curious, without having gone through this exercise, would he have responded to that job ad when it landed in his inbox? Because we ask a lot of our clients, why did you take this job? And they say, well, my friend told me about it, or they called me. The recruiter found my resume, they called me. But we rarely ask that company, that recruiter, are my needs going to be satisfied? So hopefully we've kind of, again, we don't have a comprehensive solution today. We have a very short period of time for this presentation, but hopefully it gets you thinking a little bit about what is most important to me. Do I just want a job? Am I in that stage of my career? Do I want something that is going to hopefully meet my values? Now that you know your values, step number 1, step number 2 is now we need to create a prospect list of companies, right? Just curious, how many of you, maybe do a quick survey, how many of you want an in-house counsel position, like you want to work for a corporation? Okay, so few of you. What about a law firm? Okay, for you that didn't raise your hand, what are you guys looking for? What about you, ma'am? No, this one right here. A yellow shirt. Yes.
I want to stay in government.
Okay, so you want to stay in government, right? Now, any government, or is there particular areas of the government?
No, it could be any government.
Any government. See, so that's easy, right? So like for-profit corporations, potentially non-profit corporations or whatever, is not what you're looking for. You're looking for particular government organizations, right?
Well, not necessarily, because I've worked in the private sector as well.
Okay.
And so it would have to be the right place,
okay,
the private sector for me, for my values that I pick.
That makes sense, right? Yeah, so based on those values, there's a way to create a prospect list of companies. So let me give you some of the places you can go about discovering these. Very first one's LinkedIn, right? You guys on LinkedIn? Just curious. Anybody not on LinkedIn? Okay, you're not on LinkedIn? Okay, get on it like yesterday. You're missing a huge opportunity. Not opportunity to be found necessarily. That's what most people join it for. Oh, I get to put my resume online. It's actually for you to figure out what's actually happening, what's going on. Who are the players out there? Who are the people I need to be connecting with? Who are the people I should be talking to? That's all LinkedIn. And again, we're going to do some demos today. But that's where LinkedIn's a great place to discover companies. The second thing is Inc. 5000, and these are sample lists, right? This one is a sample list. Let's say you're interested in, you're not interested, you're interested in stability and good income. But let's say some of you are interested in, like, I want to be part of the next Facebook. Like, whoever the next Facebook is, I want to be part of that. I want to be their counsel and help them get there from a legal perspective. Joint ventures, intellectual property, the real estate finance areas they're going to have to deal with, that's what I want. Well, Inc. 5000 would be those guys, the fastest growing companies. Or we could look at Inc. 500, for example. Another list could be the best places to work. Like, hey, culture is important to me. Who are the best places to work? Northwest Jobs, which is part of the Seattle Times, has an area called Northwest Jobs People Picks, where the people that work at these companies, they respond to surveys about their employers and they rate them. And then Northwest Jobs grabs the collective numbers and see who wins in particular categories. For example, they have categories like the favorite nonprofit. And the favorite large nonprofit, the favorite small nonprofit. Or the place with the coolest office space. They literally have a category for the coolest office space. Or the people that have amazing benefits, like you get to bring your dog to work, because a lot of corporations don't let you do that. So that's a great place to start. Seattle Met, CNN Money, Seattle Business. There are these journals out there, these lists out there where you can figure out. And here's why you need to figure this out, because a lot of people, when I ask them, where do you want to work? They pick the companies that everyone's heard of. And you know the problem with that? Everybody else knows about those companies. And let me give you some perspective on the number of resumes the well-known companies are receiving. Microsoft is averaging 1,100 applications right now per job opening. So when you see a job opening on Microsoft, we're talking one, and if you want to look at how big of a stack that is, Costco sells printer paper, stacks of 400, it's this tall. So triple that, right? But then double that, because most resumes have, let's say, 2 pages. Imagine a stack that tall for just one opening. They may have multiple openings. That's what Microsoft's getting. Boeing's at 1,600 applications. A company no one's ever heard of, Inrix and Kirkland, they're getting 300 applications, right? These companies are bombarded. As soon as you know the name of a company, that already we've reduced your chance of finding employment quickly. Maybe long-term you could, but quickly we've reduced that because of the number of volume applications they're receiving. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to expand your horizon and look at other amazing companies that are still going to give you that income stability he talked about, the job security, right? The things you're looking for, but in a quicker fashion than, let's say, for example, like Gates Foundation. Everybody wants to work at the Gates Foundation. Not many people know about PATH. Gates Foundation funds PATH. PATH does something very similar to the Gates Foundation. They still have a beautiful building in downtown Seattle. People don't know about them. So you know what? That means they receive less applications. What does that mean to you? More chances of finding that job in a quicker fashion than trying to go the direct route. Is that kind of resonating with you? So how do we find out about companies we haven't yet heard about? LinkedIn's a great way to do it, and these other lists are other great starting points. So now that you have a list of companies, we don't have this in the slide, so just kind of take this as a mental note. You have to kind of go through which of these are better fits for me culturally speaking. There's a website for that kind of gives you some of this data. It's called Glassdoor.com. I don't know if you've used this before or not. You can go to Foster Pepper, for example, or you can go to Microsoft, or you can go to Amazon, and you can look at Glassdoor reviews, meaning that reviews from current employees and former employees serving in an anonymous fashion what their employers really like, the problems they're dealing with, the things they love, advice to senior management, what they think of the top executives. Like Microsoft's not doing really well in certain categories. Amazon's not doing well in other categories. And it's interesting, they're almost an opposite of each other. So what one is really great at, the other one is not so good, and the opposite around. So you got to say, based on my values, which one is the one that most connects with me, that I should target as my potential employer. Now that we have a list of potential employers, and what's a good list? We have a workshop, like it's a 5-hour workshop, so I'm trying to give you like little distillations of the workshop to kind of give you this presentation today. We try to target about 10 to 25 companies. And the smaller the better, because it's almost like you become laser focused. And most people initially, they freak out when they hear like this, create a list of companies, because like, I've been the guy that goes on job sites and sees what comes up, right? But that's like playing the lottery, isn't it? That's like hoping the right job's going to show up at the right company at the right time, where there happens to be no other person applying to it that you're going to get, right? Like the job you applied online versus going through your contacts. And so that's what online job search looks like versus Strategic job search, where you pick the companies you want to work for and you create a list of decision makers, you're going for the companies that you want. Now, here's the first objection I hear when we teach this. But that company that I want doesn't have a job opening. I always ask them, how do you know? Well, it's not advertised. Yeah, not all jobs are advertised. Did you guys know that? Department of Labor says 80% of positions are filled before they ever get posted. Now, a lot of them are internal referrals, right, where they promote people within. But a lot of times it's externally employee referrals bringing in people. I'll give you a real story. I was at Inrix the other day, the traffic management company. They were spun off from Microsoft, doing very well, helping enterprises, government organizations figure out how to manage traffic problems, right? So I'm here with my client, and we're talking to the head of HR. And as he gets to know my client, he says, oh my goodness, I wish you would have came 2 weeks ago because we just filled this position he would have been perfect for. And I said, well, that's unfortunate, but, we're still really interested in Inrix. Do you have something like that coming up? He's like, actually, in the next 90 to 120 days, we're going to have another one. We're going to be expanding the team. We're going to have another one of those postings. Now, go on their career page. It's not posted right now. But here's some insider information we have about a job that's going to become open. I said, so before that job gets posted, is there any way we can talk to the manager to find out what their needs are, whether it's a good fit for my client, whether we should pursue it or not? He's like, yeah, his name is Jason. Let me get you connected. We're talking to Jason one-on-one before the job ever gets advertised. And you're going to love this. Sometimes when the job's not advertised, it's this soft job description, not a hard job description, because you almost have a chance to influence how they create the job description. Like you can put in your agenda and some of your skill set that maybe was not going to be called for, and you can put in some of your career objectives into that. And it's a fascinating way. And how frequently does this happen? Quite a bit. But again, unless you have a list of companies, we can't do this for hundreds, or you don't have that kind of time. It's very expensive. But if you know who you want to work for, and we create a list of decision makers, that can be a realistic goal for you. So who are the people you should talk to? I think, first and foremost, influential industry contacts. These people may not work for the organization you're targeting. For example, I'll give you some names. Carol Olsby is a high influential industry contact for human resources. People in the HR organizations, the HR associations, they know Carol. When I give presentations to, there's a 500 HR professionals in a room and I say Carol Olsby, they're nodding. If Carol refers you to a company you want to work for, they will take the call. They will meet with you. Even if they're not your contact, they will meet with you out of respect for Carol. Janice Mashala is another influential industry contact for venture capital. A lot of you, I don't know, are there any intellectual property folks in here? A couple of those? Yeah, so she's an influential industry contact for that industry. Mark Tranter is a highly, highly sought after name for CFOs. If you're looking for a chief financial officer and or being the attorney for those type organizations where it's very finance focused, like let's say Russell Investments. So there's these different people that we can identify that have a lot of influence. They have what's called a halo effect over their industry. And that would be the first the first list that I would start building. The second one would be company executives, right? Who are the top level? And the good news about law firms is there's not that many titles, right? So there's attorney, senior attorney, right? Or associate, senior partner, managing partner, something like that. It's not that complex. So you can guess who those company executives are. And we're going to do a demo a little bit later today, going on LinkedIn, and you can type in partner, Foster Pepper, real estate, and you'll find those guys. In fact, you can go to their website, probably find that as well. And those would be the list of decision makers you create for that. Next one's future manager. So who would be the person you ideally report to, right? So if you're maybe an attorney and you're going to report to a partner, then that would be the partner, as opposed to the managing partner, which is a company executive. Future colleagues, who are other attorneys at that firm, right, that maybe can tell you a little bit about the company and you can develop a relationship. Maybe they're willing to endorse you and refer you internally. Human resources, including agency recruiters. You probably need some HR people on your side because they're going to be screening your resume and deciding whether or not to forward your application on. And last but not least, and probably one of the most important categories, former employees. If you want to work at Amazon as an in-house counsel, it would be amazing to talk to someone that just left as in-house counsel that used to work at Amazon. That'd be the person that can tell you everything that's going on and whether or not you want to get involved in that drama or not, right? It could be good drama, it could be bad drama, but should you get involved, you don't know that from the outside. Human resources is not going to tell you. Future managers are not going to tell you. Your future colleagues may not tell you, right, because it could go back. But these people, former employees, they have nothing to lose. So they go, oh yeah, here's what's really going on, right? And you may get excited about what's going on, or you may say, shoot, I don't think that's the right environment for me. And so this would be a good list. So like, what does this look like? Picture an Excel spreadsheet, right? An Excel spreadsheet with some columns on the top, which has the name of the employers, right? So Amazon, let's say you have Microsoft, let's say you have Boeing and Weyerhaeuser, right? And then you have a list of these decision makers. You have a couple of influential industry contacts, 1 or 2 executives, 1 or 2 bosses, 1 or 2 colleagues, a couple of former employees. And so we call this in our company a 10 by 10 spreadsheet. And sometimes the most simplistic tools are the most powerful, right? And so when our clients wake up in the morning, they don't go on Indeed.com. They don't go on Simply Hired or to a random job search site. They go to their 10 by 10 spreadsheet and say, who should I be setting up these meetings with today? Who have I not yet met with that I need to talk to, right? Any questions up until this point? Anything I need to clarify? Or, Paul, that really sounds strange. I could just never see myself doing that. Or no, this makes sense. Shoot, I wish I'd have done this sooner. I would have made so much progress had I been more strategic about my job search than how I've been today. Yes, ma'am.
Drive to work in any one particular thing. Like, what if you just want a job?
So give me an example. Like, what kind of job? Like, probably some form of job, right? It's not like technical writing, right?
I just want a lawyer job.
You just want a lawyer job. Now, is there a particular, and I appreciate that, is there a particular area of law that you study that you're probably better at than other areas of law? Like you may know real estate or bankruptcy better than you may know marriage law?
Yeah, I mean, I probably know litigation or copyright more than bankruptcy.
Okay.
But, like, if someone said we had an opening in bankruptcy and they're willing to give me an interview, yeah, I'd go into bankruptcy.
Take it. Yeah. The good news for you is there's lots of opportunities. The bad news for you is there's lots of opportunities. And when there's lots of opportunities and we're going this route, how do we set up meetings with hundreds of potential decision makers? And here's the problem that you're going to deal with. And this is for everybody, by the way. Anyone that doesn't follow the strategic job search process is if you go to SeaTac Airport, and depending on where you guys are, maybe Spokane, go to Spokane Airport and go to the Alaska Airlines counter and say, I'd like to book a trip. What's the first thing they're going to ask you? Anybody? Where do you want to go, right? Well, anywhere. I'll take anything right now. Won't they actually call airport security? Like, here's a fugitive looking to leave. He doesn't care where he's going to go. That's the problem we deal with, is I'll go anywhere, is how do they sell you a ticket? Now, what if a little bit like you, we started asking some questions. You said, well, I'd take Europe. Europe would probably be a good place to start. There's lots of countries in Europe. Where specifically? I don't know. I'll take anything. It's still hard to buy a plane ticket to anywhere in Europe, right? What if you said Italy? Now, there's multiple airports in Italy, but we're getting closer and closer. I think it's worth the pain to discover this, because once you know it and you can emotionally commit yourself to it, you're going to get there much faster than if you leave yourself up for chance. Kind of like going to the slot machines and playing and playing and playing and pulling that slot machine and watching what numbers come. And it's interesting with slot machines, we have a psychologist in here, there's operant conditioning, right? There's operant conditioning where they keep rewarding every once in a while some winning, so you keep playing, right? Same thing with the job search process. Every once in a while you get a phone call and you get excited, this is working. But it's never enough to say, I'm done, I found my destination. But this one is kind of playing poker, so you still don't know what's going to happen, but you're more strategic. And with poker, you can have pretty poor hands, but the way you play your cards, you end up having everybody else fold, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, hopefully today, is we're still going to gamble, right? Job search, or life, I guess, in general, is gambling, right? You meet an amazing spouse, there is no science yet discovered on how do you find the dream spouse. So it's a lot by chance, right? Hopefully you know what you want and you happen to meet that person. So I want to move you from slot machines to poker. Is that kind of helpful? And it's worth, if you need to talk to anybody, a career counselor, a career coach, maybe an informational interview, 20 different firms, say, okay, prior to interviewing these guys, I was open. After talking to those companies, there's no way. That just would not be. Now, maybe I'll take it temporarily because I just need a job. I need some form of income. But there's no way I could stay there. This would not work out. Even if you think it would work out, maybe they don't think it will work out. It's a loss leader, right? So you have a list of companies, you have a list of decision makers. What's the next step? Approach strategy. How are we going to approach these people? So first and foremost, you can do it through introductions, which is through connections and through influential industry contacts, right? That's what you can do. The next thing is informational interviews, right? Setting up meetings with total strangers you don't know. Now, I'm calling this an informational interview. Please don't use that language when you're setting up these meetings. Don't say, I want to do an informational interview with you. It sounds more college-y, and I think you're past that. I think most of you are, and hopefully people watching from home. If you are just out of college, you could use that language, but professionals shouldn't. But I'm using it so we're all on the same page. What we're talking about is setting up a meeting for the purposes of gathering information, right? The next one is a business plan proposal. It's tough for attorneys to do this, but I have seen some attorneys pull it off, where they go to a corporation. For example, let's say Tableau Software just went public. They'll go to Tableau Software and say, we noticed that here's an area of opportunity from a legal perspective. Like, you remember like Starbucks. Like Starbucks is in the business of coffee, kind of, but they're in the business of real estate. But they kind of discovered it a little bit later, didn't they? There was an attorney or someone that went to them and said, hey, we should be thinking about this. What if you went to a company and pitched an idea where they haven't thought about that area of law and how it'd be useful, but where there's some bottom line to them? For example, IP attorneys come to me all the time. They say, Paul, is Prolango's information copyright? Are you protecting yourself so when you go to China and you give these speeches, they're not just copy-pasting that information? And to me, I just wasn't thinking in those terms, right? Because I'm not an attorney. And so they're making these business plan proposals where it's kind of opening my mind. Same thing you can do for companies. So that's one thing you could do. The next one's volunteering. You could volunteer, probably nonprofit. I don't think corporations will allow you legally to volunteer. Maybe you can help, like a helping hand. But you probably could volunteer and through that somehow be discovered, right? Either by the people you're going to meet with or that organization. And then the other one is general networking, right? So the Washington State Bar, I'm sure you guys have networking events. Coming and networking with these staff firms that are present, with the corporations that are present, and building those connections like you talked about, right? How do we develop those connections through general networking? So there's so much we can talk about. I want to focus on one that I think would be the most useful to you, which would be informational interviews. That's the one that a lot of people struggle with, is how do you set up these informational interviews? How do you get a total stranger that doesn't know you to say, sure, I'll sit down with you. I'll talk to you about my company. Sure, let's do that, right? How do you do that? There is, I don't want to say the word science, but there kind of is a little bit of science to it, and a part art. So part of it is a process which we have run through with 12,000 people, so we now have enough data saying this works. But then we also noticed there was a part artistic part to it. So I'm going to try to teach both of them as much as we can in a short period of time to see if we can give you some of that science and art behind to help you schedule an informational interview. Let me ask you this. When you get an email that you don't recognize the name from, what's the first thought that runs through your head? Like, you haven't opened the email. You get this email from Joe Blow. What's the first thing that runs through your head? Just curious. Spam, right? Okay. Does anybody ever just curiously click on something? Like, hey, I'm just curious what this home offer is, or this drugs in Canada, or Viagra or something. Does anyone ever click on those things? Just curious. Okay. So the first thing that we have to overcome is they're not going to see the email that we're sending to them. They're only going to see the subject line. So they're going to see Paul Anderson. Who's Paul Anderson? I don't know. Oh, maybe he's a Como News guy, right? Maybe you have that working for you, but if you don't have that Como News thing working for you, the only opportunity you have is the subject line. Because if it says, refinance your home, mark as spam. But if it says this other subject line, which it's hard to give you my secrets when the slides are sitting in front of you, the subject line that tend to get the most amount of responses in our program is the word coffee with a question mark. Because what spammer would ever say coffee? Like, who would ever send that to you? Have you ever gotten an email like that? Right? I mean, nobody would ever send that. So the word coffee question mark, as vague as that is, gets them or compels them to open the email. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to sit down with you, but they have now opened your email. And you're welcome to purchase MailChimp or Constant Contact, run a campaign, and you'll see the percentage open with different subject lines. It's amazing how big this one is. Another one that we have found to be the most effective subject line is your name came up. Isn't that interesting? What if someone said that to you? You're like, wow, what do you mean? Like Heidi, your name came up. It's like, ooh, what are people saying about me? Like, it's this element of flattery. You're like, ooh, someone's talking about me. Again, a spammer would never say that to you, right? The closest thing I've seen spammers do is they say, Paul, blah, 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 SEO services. So they'll say Paul, which catches my attention because you always pay attention to your name, but then the services are also on the subject line, so you recognize as spam. But I've never yet received, maybe I'll at some point, but until now, I have not yet received an email saying your name came up from someone that was not a spammer, okay? And then another one, this is my favorite, this is probably one we might have invented, maybe there's other people that are talking about this, but I haven't yet run into them, is request for interview. How cool would this be? So Heidi, what if I reached out to you and said, hey, request for interview? You're like, ooh, what's that? Someone wants to interview me? And I have in parentheses Harrow. I don't know if you got anyone familiar with Harrow? Okay, so we got two problems in this room, right? We got, what was the first problem? I forgot. What was the first thing you guys did? Oh, you guys didn't watch Suits, so that's first problem. Let's go watch that on Netflix or iTunes. Second one is Harrow. So Harrow stands for helpareporterout.com. So Help a Reporter Out is a website, it's a free website, where journalists, such as the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Business Week, Seattle Times, everyone basically, publishers, they go in and register themselves, and then anytime they're writing about something, they go to Harrow's website, and they say, I'm looking to interview someone on the subject X. And then there's thousands of people that have registered as experts or sources that go register, and when they see a subject X that's their expertise, they say, hey, I have some insight to share. So it's a great way for experts to meet potential opportunities to be featured in the press, right? Now, how's this useful to you? Let's say you're looking to meet a top decision maker. Let's say you're trying to meet like maybe Rich Barton at Zillow.com. Like you want to be his corporate attorney. And Rich Barton is so famous that there's no way he'd ever respond to LinkedIn or email or letter, but maybe he would respond to a request for interview because he likes promoting his company and the projects he's working on. That's just what those big guys do, right? They love to be featured in the media. But you're not writing for the Wall Street Journal, so you can't say, hey, I'm the Wall Street Journal, I want to interview you. But you know what you could do? You could partner up with the Wall Street Journal. You could register as a source on Harrow's website. And then they're talking about the subject X. So let's say the subject X is bankruptcy. You could reach out to a bankruptcy firm and say, hey, you actually reach out to the journalist and you say, I may know someone that would be great for this. Would you mind if I introduce you? He's like, no, we'd love to meet sources. You then reach out to a bankruptcy firm and say, hey, I'm working on an article for USA Today. Now, you're not saying you're the reporter for USA Today, but you're working on an article for USA Today. I want to make sure, from an attorney perspective, we're clear, right? Is that enough legal language? Am I good on my communication? Yes? Okay, no one's objecting? All right, so I'm working on an article is correct. Aren't you working on an article with USA Today? And then what you do is use that opportunity to get a meeting. Now, that meeting is an opportunity for you to develop a relationship, right? You get a chance to have coffee with this top decision maker. You get your chance, and then you say, hey, I'm working on this article, and here's what the journalist is looking for. We'd love to connect the two of you. We did this. We drink our own Kool-Aid. I was trying to reach out to White Pages, meet this top VP of HR, intimidating from the outside. So I decided to reach out and say, hey, I'm working on an article for the Wall Street Journal. They're talking about employee referrals. He responds right away, oh, yeah, we'd love to, blah, blah, blah. So I got my little meeting out of it. I got what I needed. I got a chance to develop a relationship, and I connected him, Ring Nishioka, he's the head of HR, with the Wall Street Journal. They loved what he had to share, so they flew here. They interviewed them. These guys got a huge release out of this. Like, they got featured. Their photos were taken. He said, Paul, I am indebted to you for the rest of my life. Like, I didn't even know who you were. But after that experience, you put our company on the map, and we were famous, and I was personally famous, and you made this happen. And so I developed a friend like that. Think about that for a second. Who are people you want to meet in your career that you probably can't meet on your own because you're lacking some form of power, where you could get that power through association? I hope this is expanding your level of thoughts from just pure tactical job hunting, feeling so disempowered looking at these online job listings saying they're not going to call me anyway, but I guess I got to submit a job just to feel good and tell my spouse I'm really trying. This could make it happen, right? So one of these, try these out. You'll know it's working if you get 33% to 50% of people to respond to you. That's our response rate that we're getting, which is phenomenal if you think about it. These are total strangers. We're 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 people that don't know us saying, sure, I'd love to have coffee with you, or I'd love to talk to you about what, right? So that's the subject line. That gets them to open the email. Any questions on this before we move to the next section? Yes, ma'am. Can we wait till the microphone? Okay.
Your suggestion about Haro is really, it's intriguing, but my concern is that it comes off as a little gimmicky and not genuine.
Okay. So what you're doing when you do this, and let's keep having this conversation. I want to make sure you feel good about it, because if you don't, you won't use it. When you reach out to someone for an interview, you truly wanted to meet them, yes? There's a chance for them to meet the reporter that's working on this article, yes? And there is a high chance that if they have good content to share, they're going to be featured. So somehow they are going to win out of this. And you're going to win because you had a chance to temporarily make a friend. Now, that friend may decide because they're a relationship-based person, wow, this person brought value to my life, so I want to stay in touch with them. Or, no, I just got what I needed from this total stranger and I move on, right? So you're going with the genuineness of trying to help this. Dale Carnegie talked about, right? You can make more friends becoming interested in their lives than you can make friends trying to get people interested in you. No one's interested in you, let's be honest, right? Only you're interested in you. But if you want to make friends, you become interested in others, right? Because people are very selfish. Maslow talked about this, the basic hierarchy of needs, to satisfy their own needs first. When you go to satisfying someone else's needs, you get their attention, which is 100% opposite to an elevator pitch, right? Don't they teach like elevator pitches? And I hope, Heidi, you don't teach this, but let's say don't they teach elevator pitches in career job search groups? Now, there is a reason to teach it, because you want to be a clear communicator. You want to know what you do, what you stand for. What you never want to do is you meet a stranger and you say, hey, my name is Paul Anderson, and I'm a corporate attorney, and this is about me, and I went to University of Michigan, I did this, I did that, and the guy's like, why do I care? Now, in Seattle, they're too polite to say that to you, right? So they're like, oh, that's interesting. Really, Heidi? Yeah, tell me more. And then they even give you their business card. They like lead you on that this is going great, and then they never call you. They never want to deal with you. In fact, they may tell their admin, if you get a call from Paul Anderson, tell him I'm not available, right? This is 100% opposite to that. Instead of saying, this is me, you're saying, hey, I really care about you. I would love to bring some value to you. Just like when you buy a coffee for somebody, is that gimmicky? I guess you could see it that way, but if you have true intentions to help someone, that's what the coffee is for, right? But thanks for bringing that up. Now, the next thing is, the first question that they're running out of, okay, I'll open this email, is why should I care? What is this and why should I care? So the first paragraph is probably the most important. Shorter the better. I know some attorneys that we work with, they write paragraphs that are this long. Something super short, maybe 3 lines of text, 4 lines tops. Shorter the better. The first paragraph's the most important. So what should that contain? Talk about them. Remember, again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Talk about them. You know, you could say, like, let's say like Jason Flores. Jason, I see that you work at Honeywell and you're the director of marketing, and I don't know if you're directly responsible or not, but what Honeywell's been coming out with lately from a market, that's phenomenal. I'm just so impressed. And hopefully it's genuine, like you're really impressed by that, and you're acknowledging that. So what we have here is flattery works, and the word most of the time. Most people, they respond very positively when you're saying kind things about them. The other one is to do a name drop. You know, like I was at the State Bar Association, I was talking to Heidi, and Mike, your name came up. And Mike's like, oh, wow, Heidi's talking about me. They were having a conversation. So there's elements of, okay, this is, again, not a spam email. I should care. This email was written to me. See, one thing people don't want to do is they don't want to respond to a newsletter. They don't want to respond to a copy-pasted message that was sent to hundreds and hundreds of people. This is so specific that they know this was written to them. And when they feel like it was written to them, they have this sense of obligation to want to reply back. It's the politeness of human nature. As you contributed to them, there's something called reciprocity. Hopefully they reciprocate. They may not reciprocate if they don't get your message to begin with, so definitely that's one option. Or the second thing is if they're antisocial, and Mike, I'm sure you have other clinical disorders that people may have where they may not respond to your message. Maybe they're rude or whatever that is. But the point is, most of the time, at least in our experience has been, if you send something like that, people tend to at least reply. They may say, I'm not interested, or I really can't at this time, can we try in a couple of months? But a lot of times people respond to this. The next part is then you want to tell them a little bit about you. You have a question? Yeah.
I
identified a potential mentor, and I've been in contact with her a few times. And I keep getting the email back, try me back in a few weeks. I'm about to go to trial. Then I'll contact her again, and she'll say, I'm really busy right now, but maybe next month.
Yes.
So how far do I continue doing that?
So I have two techniques. Two techniques I have personally used. Technique number one, I offered breakfast. I said, hey, I'm buying breakfast. You got to eat breakfast. You're not working during breakfast time. Let's meet during breakfast. I found lunches to be the toughest, and sometimes if they're super successful, dinners to be booked as well. But breakfast tends not to be booked with a lot of people, so that's one. The second thing is guilt trip. So what I did is I sent, in fact, I just did it today. It's really funny, I'm bringing this up. I sent a bouquet of flowers, 1-800-Flowers. They're not sponsoring this message. This is me just using their service. Same-day delivery. I sent them something, and I said, hey, I really appreciate having you in my life, and our relationship is really important to me. And what you've done so far for me, and hopefully they've done something for you, I really value it. And so I just thought I'd send this as more of a thank you kind of thing. When they receive something like that, next week you say, hey, how are things going? Oh, yeah, let's sit down, because there's this element of, shoot, you just spent $60 on me. I probably should respond and not blow you up. So those two will hopefully overcome some of that. Okay? Now, tell them a little bit about you. When someone gets a message from a stranger, they don't know who you are. Now, sure, if you're sending this through LinkedIn, they could click on your profile, but that causes too much pain. I got to click on his profile, research the guy. So how about you say a sentence, but just a little bit about you, right? Like, you can flatter yourself later, but just a sentence or two. Hey, I'm also a real estate attorney. What you've done in the real estate world is phenomenal. I would love an opportunity to talk with you, learn a little bit more of the projects you guys are working on. I'm just fascinated, et cetera, something like that. Treat them like a mentor. I look up to you, something like that, and having an opportunity to talk to you would be invaluable to me, right? Then you got to put the agenda. What is the meeting going to look like? And again, this is super short. There's all these elements, but we're talking about like maybe total of this much text, maybe like less than a half a page, maybe a quarter page. Is what's the agenda? So maybe say like, I would love to ask you some questions on real estate. I would love to ask you some questions on the latest practices going on with IP, right? With the strategic partnerships merging, how is that affecting the industry? Or how is your firm dealing with things like that, right? That's an example. Now, hopefully that agenda is a potential problem that you can solve. The last thing you want to do is say, let's talk about X, where you have no solution to X. Then why are we talking about that, right? The word strategic means you have to have your agenda implanted in this. So if you have these amazing ways to solve IP problems, say, how are you dealing with these right now? And they may say, hey, we're actually struggling in that area. We've kind of done this and this and this, but we're not really good. And then you may say, hey, I have some ideas, may be useful to you. Again, could be gimmicky, sure, but with the right intentions, you're really trying to go and serve that audience and make them better, right? And then you need a strong close. At the end of the day, there needs to be a call for action. And we're teaching you marketing today, right? A strong close is something that will get someone to respond to you. Because you can say all the great things in the world, but if there's no call to action, nothing's going to happen. So what's a strong close? We have an example for you. A strong close could be, what's your schedule look like for a 5 to 10 minute meeting in the next 2 weeks? Is a Starbucks on 8th Street easier for you? Right, Heidi? I know you like Starbucks. Or would you rather meet at your office instead? There's a couple of elements from psychology going on here. Element number one, Psych 101, foot in the door technique. When you ask for someone's hour, and you know this, and their billable is very, very high, they're like, okay, I can make $500 here, or I can sit and talk about whatever to some total stranger. So an hour you're not going to get. Now, your meeting could turn into an hour, but if you ask for an hour up front, very difficult. What about half hour? Still not going to work. But if you ask for 5 to 10 minutes, it's so hard to turn someone down and say, I don't have 5 to 10 minutes. Come on. You got to use the restroom at some point, right? You got to drink coffee. Everyone has 5 to 10 minute meeting. Now, what's really cool is it gives them a chance to evaluate you. Okay, this person doesn't have crazy tattoos. He's very professional. He looks nice. He speaks well. He's highly educated. Let me keep talking to this person. Whereas, I wasn't expecting this person. Hey, Jason, it was such a pleasure meeting. I really have to run. I only had 5 minutes. Thank you so much. So it gives a chance for them to say, is this worthy of my time? So 5 to 10 minute meeting, we've had the highest response. 30 minutes to an hour, not so much. The good news is a 5 to 10 minute meeting for most of our clients has turned into 30 minutes, an hour, for some 3 hours long, right? So if you ask for something short and you get it, they bless you on that, they tend to grant more requests. The other element of psychology is what's called the illusion of choice. Notice the second statement where it says, is the Starbucks on 8th Street easier for you? Or would you rather meet at your office instead? Whichever they pick is in your favor. Isn't that cool? Like you tell your kid, would you like to go to bed at 9 o'clock or 9:15? Right? You're going to, versus go to bed, but giving them an illusion of choice. They got to pick something in either way. And again, this has another element from marketing perspective. This isn't spam. You took the time to research that there is a Starbucks on 8th Street. So this message was truly written to me. I feel too guilty not to respond to this because I know this person is probably expecting some form of reply. See, if I get at any point that you sent this to 50 other people because it's so generic, I'm going to say if I don't reply, he or she won't even know because they don't even remember who they sent this to. If this was written to me, I know there's a sense. Does that make sense? Is this resonating with you a little bit? Is this something you could do? You have nothing to lose. You're already sending your resume. If you did this instead of sending your resume, in advance of sending your resume, let's go back to that. Do you remember the ladder earlier from the second slide or the third slide? There was that ladder. If you get to the hiring manager directly, you have skipped the applicant tracking system, which is a computer with no emotion. You have skipped the human resources, which is a human with little to no emotion, because they're human resources, right? You got to the actual person that cares for what you have to offer and their needs specifically, and you had a chance to meet them. Now, they may still, in post-meeting, may say, hey, I would love you to apply to our company, but guess what? You have a relationship now, so when you do apply, they're watching for your resume. But if you didn't do this technique, if you sent your resume first and then you try to get a meeting, you guys know better than me, equal opportunity employment violations, right? You cannot treat candidates differently. So a lot of people that I meet say, oh, Paul, I want to use this technique, but question for you, I've already sent my resume. It's like, this technique will not work. If they know you already submitted your resume, or if you use the word job search, career seeking, there's this position I'm interested in, they can't treat candidates differently, at least if they're following the law. And so from that perspective, you have a much, much lower chance, especially with like the more prestigious firms. We have a question from the audience.
2 questions. Do you share the status of your employment? For example, would I put looking for work?
On LinkedIn?
You didn't specify clearly. I think it's just with your closing letter.
Because that's kind of like that's like saying I'm single, right? It's just, it doesn't have a lot of elements of prestige, right? Even if you are single, you don't want to advertise that. Now, you can meet someone, they say, hey, what's your marital status? Hey, I'm single. Oh, that's great. Maybe we should have good drinks together. But if you say the word single, you may scare people off. So the word looking for work scares a lot of prestigious employers off. For example, I'll give you something about, again, because we're being recorded, a large .com in Seattle came to my Career Mixer. We host a monthly event. We have professionals meeting companies. And this guy was actually looking for attorneys. This is a really interesting example for you guys. He's looking for attorneys, and I said, and his name is Bobby, and there's so many Bobbies out there, so I said, Bobby, who are you looking for tonight? He's like, nobody in here. It's like, why not? He's like, these people are unemployed. What about it? He's like, I can't hire unemployed. My boss said I have to find the most prestigious corporate attorneys at other corporations and headhunt them to our company, right? So if you had any illusion that you were unemployed, he was not interested. But if he developed a relationship, was fascinated, then happens to find out you're unemployed, maybe there's some bias toward still talking to you, but the word unemployed. So question number 1, I would not advertise looking for work. What's question number 2?
Question number 2. A lot of the examples and tips you've given assume we have money to spend on folks. We're here because we don't have a job. What do we do if we don't have any money to spend?
Can you repeat?
Referring to the coffee and the breakfast and
oh,
sending
that's a
flowers.
great question. Coffee or breakfast? Shoot, that's a tough one. I mean, if you can't buy them coffee, I'm not quite sure how you're going to develop a relationship, because it'd be tough to say, here's a glass of water and we're at Starbucks. So I guess at this point I was not prepared for that question. If I think of something, I'll definitely I'll see what I can come up with. Yeah. Okay. And then here's something, I don't always do this, but if I feel like I may need to put this last statement in there, I'll put it in. It tends to push for the meeting and tends to get high responses. Is you put something where it's like basically, we call this negative reinforcement. You take something negative away by saying, I'll follow up with a phone call on Monday if I don't hear back from you through LinkedIn. So basically, it indirectly tells them, respond to my message, which is much easier to do. Otherwise, you're going to receive a phone call from me, right? It's almost like a kind of a very subtle form of push for just respond to my message if you don't want to deal with another phone call on top of the message that you've already received. Again, it's kind of something that you have to evaluate if the context makes sense, but I thought I'd give it to you because it might be useful to you. Any questions on setting up? We have not talked about how to conduct informational interviews. Unfortunately, we won't have time to cover that today, but this is at least how to get in front of the decision makers, right? So let's kind of summarize. We have talked about 86%, according to most recent surveys, of people really, really unhappy, right? They have a job, but they're just not happy about it. We also talked about most people, the average unemployed, according to Department of Labor, are unemployed for 38 weeks, 9.5 months of unemployment, right? So we have people that are, working that are not happy, and the people that are not working, they're unemployed for a very, very long time. The strategic job search attempts to solve this problem by two things. Matching your values with the values of the employer, meaning finding values of companies out there that happen to be a good match for you. So if you like work-life balance, we don't look at the micromanagement, 90-hour-week companies, right? So then when you do get that job, you're happy. And the second thing is by going directly to the decision maker and avoiding some of the filtering that is superfluous, right? That's kind of in the way. We get there to our destination much faster. Any questions up until this point? Can we wait for the microphone just so the audience can hear it? Thank you.
Somebody mentioned mentoring.
Yes.
Have you seen yourself the effect on finding a mentor, putting in energy to find a mentor on accelerating this process?
Absolutely. And that's the influential industry context that we talked about earlier. Like when I met someone like a Carol Olsby, this is someone that could be my human resources mentor, and we became great friends. And so since from that relationship, she's had a huge influence on me and the decisions I made for my company, but also has helped so many of our clients. When we needed some of that HR push, she could provide that. We have a question on the webcast.
So after the info interview and you decide you want the job, then at that point you send in your resume and cover letter?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you do an informational interview, you decide this is the right company, the right position for me, then you could actually ask from an etiquette perspective, hey, Mike, I'm thinking of applying for this position based on my qualifications. What are your thoughts? Do you recommend I should do this? It's more of you're not really asking for permission, but you're almost giving them that, oh, no, please. I think this is a great match for what we're looking for. And again, we still have to follow the hiring process. If we decide on you, we still have to interview you. But the point here, there's some psychological biases toward we have a relationship than just this Adam Smith job seeker on a 2-page resume, right? Any other questions? Are you going to do this? You promise me? I'm up here. You got to do it. You got to do it for me. Remember, you always have the chance to submit your resume online, okay? And 17% of you will find a job that way. But there's this other great area of opportunity which you won't get from online job applications, which is how do I find my dream job? And if you don't know your dream job, it's worth taking the time to figure it out. Because I think if you figure it out, okay, I got to bring this up because I was talking to an attorney recently, and I said, how can I help you? And he's like, I want to find a job in the non-legal field. And I said, why is that? He's like, I don't know. What I thought it was going to be turned out not to be it. I don't know. Hopefully no one here has had that experience, or maybe you can relate to that person. But you know what's sad? We're talking $110,000 student loan that we're not going to be able to leverage, or the education that we just spent plus the finances. Because that person, when I asked him, why'd you become an attorney? He's like, I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. It sounded fancy. My parents may have been proud of me. Not sad. Think about that for a second. What else could this person have done? So from that perspective, my fear is you take something for the sake of I need a job. And again, you got to do that, you got to do that. But if you settle for it, how do you answer that later when someone says, so you're so depressed when you come home. What's going on? I don't have a good boss, and the culture that's not working for me. That's lost opportunity, right? All right, so let's talk about reaching out to these people. And I want to talk about LinkedIn specifically because that's what I think Heidi advertised. We're going to talk about LinkedIn today. LinkedIn's really interesting. LinkedIn shows who you're connected to, right? The first-degree connections. And then it shows who they're connected to, the second-degree connections. And then it shows who they're connected to, which is the third-degree connections. And LinkedIn stops right there. There's lots of more connections in the world. Social scientists say there's 6 degrees of separation, right? LinkedIn does not go that far. It only limits you and your search results to 3 degrees of separation. Meaning, if you're not on LinkedIn, join LinkedIn. And if LinkedIn, when you first join, is not valuable to you because nothing's pulling up in the search results, it's not LinkedIn's fault, is that you haven't yet populated your connections in there. So the more first-degree connections you add, the more chances that you're going to find second degree and third degree. And hopefully your friends are connected, so then there's this multiplying effect that happens, right? LinkedIn, I think, calculated, they said 64 connections tends to make LinkedIn really useful. So if you have less than 64 connections, it's not LinkedIn's fault, it's you got to add those numbers in. Jason and I, we found critical mass at 1,500. Once we hit 1,500, a lot of opportunities start coming our way. A lot of people started finding us that weren't finding us before. So more connections, the better. Now, this doesn't mean carelessly adding anybody on LinkedIn, whether or not a real person, but this does mean do go more for an open network, not the person you have to be related to by blood, because I know some people do it that way. It's like if you're gonna only add your relatives, then maybe do that on Facebook, right? If you're on LinkedIn, that's your business card. You give your business card to lots of people. This is your professional business card, right? Now, what's interesting is when we reach out to these people, you can reach out to your friends for free. That's the good news about LinkedIn. You can reach out, but you know what? That's not a cool feature because you already have their email address. They're your friend. So LinkedIn's not bringing a lot of value there. Where LinkedIn does bring value is it lets you ping your friends as friends. But you know what? They're not a nonprofit. They make money doing this. And there's a feature called InMail, which costs money. And I know we had the question on the webcast, what if I don't have money for coffee? Well, guess what? This is even more expensive than coffee. This is $10 a message. Every InMail you send is $10. Doesn't sound like a lot on the surface, but you send 10 emails to 10 people, that's $100 right there. So this can quickly rack up. And again, you have the opportunity to mail the third degree connections, but again, LinkedIn's going to try to monetize that. If I showed you a feature to reach out to second and third degree connections without paying LinkedIn any money, would you be interested in that feature? Anybody interested in that? Yeah? All right, so remind me to demo. It seems like one person. Okay, one person's interested. I will demo that maybe on the break then. You have an opportunity through LinkedIn to reach out to these people. There's a little backdoor. It is a legal backdoor because I'm in front of attorneys. I don't teach the legal stuff today. But there's a legal backdoor which LinkedIn does not advertise. Why should they advertise something where you can get it for free? But is a great opportunity to take advantage of. Now, one thing, though, that a lot of people don't know about is LinkedIn also includes group members as part of your search results. So, for example, if you join large LinkedIn groups, you have that 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people that were member of that group instantly become part of your search results. So when you're saying who is the partner at this law firm, that person will now pull up, whereas before, because your first, second, third degrees weren't any of those people, they weren't pulling up. It was saying search not found. So by adding a lot of groups, now you can only join 50 groups at a time, but by joining up to 50 of the most qualified groups for you, so if it's bankruptcy, real estate, marriage, whatever that is, join the right groups, those people instantly become part of your search results. And the trick with LinkedIn, that they don't advertise, you can ping those people for free. Isn't that cool? So you can ping all the group members for free, meaning if there's someone at the second or third degree level that you want to reach out to that you can't, if you go to their profile, you go to the bottom of their profile, you see the groups they're a member of, and you join that group, they now become a group member. And then you can ping them for free, right? A lot of people were abusing the feature, so then LinkedIn buried the button where you can send a message to these people for free. So if you guys are interested, I'll show that to you a little bit later. How do we send this out besides LinkedIn? Well, again, LinkedIn's group feature is one way to go. But I've noticed that if someone is not looking for a job, someone's not a salesperson, someone's not a student, they're not on LinkedIn. Like they have a profile, but they're not using it. So you send them a message, and it's been a month, 2 months, 3 months, they have not responded. Not because they didn't want to respond, they're not on LinkedIn to check their messages. Isn't that interesting? So I would not limit my communication to just purely LinkedIn. Try it, because you may get a response right away. That's great. But if you don't give up on that contact. Maybe there's another way to reach out to that person, maybe Twitter or another social media profile. I'll give you a recent example. I was wanting to reach out to the head of PEMCO. I sent him a LinkedIn message. No response. I'm like, shoot, I used my own techniques. It's not working. So then I said, oh, channels of communication. I sent to LinkedIn. Let me try Twitter. I found the guy's Twitter profile on his LinkedIn. I clicked on that. I tweeted him, hey, I sent you something. Not sure if you got it. He responded within 5 minutes. It's like, okay, he's a Twitter person, not a LinkedIn person, right? So by changing my mode of communication, I got the response that I was eliciting. The U.S. mail is still in business. I know that sounds surprising, but you can take advantage of that. If you mail, and if you're on a budget, that could help you. I mean, we're talking postage stamp and envelope. Maybe you can even get envelopes at the library. I'm not sure if they have those resources, but U.S. mail, we have gotten a lot of response. Now, you got to be careful with U.S. mail. You gotta print the letter so they can read your handwriting, but handwrite the address on the outside of the letter. That makes it look like a personal letter, so then it doesn't get marked and categorized as junk mail. And that's how we've gotten that. If you have a little bit of budget, put a guilt trip in the letter, which is a $5 Starbucks gift card. And here's what you say. You say, Heidi, I would love to meet with you, have coffee. By the way, coffee already included when we meet. Heidi would have to be really selfish to drink that coffee alone without meeting with me. Does that make sense? In fact, we had a client recently. He said, Paul, I sent one of these things out, did not get a response. I'm like, shoot, I lost $10. He put a $10 card. 30 days later, the guy calls him and says, hey, I was on vacation. I was out of town. I just got back to the office. I find this gift card and that you wanted to meet. Do you still want to meet? Because I wasn't sure what to do with. So he's like, no, I would still love to meet. So I highly doubt that person would have responded if there was no gift card in there, right? Because 30 days old, probably not even concerned anymore. So a $10, $5 guilt trip made a huge, huge difference. If you have more budget and you're looking to reach out to higher level decision makers, we have found that the admins, the administrative assistants or the executive assistants of these people screen their U.S. mail. What they tend not to screen is FedEx packages. So if you buy a FedEx package, or if you're on budget, here's a budget tip, because we work with a lot of job seekers, so we have to learn all the budget tips too. Is what you do is you go to the big FedEx buildings. Have you seen those big FedEx buildings where if it couldn't get mailed to your home, they put in that big building? If you go to that building, there's tons and tons of FedEx envelopes. Go grab a chunk of them because they're available, and then go to your car, right? So now you have like 30 envelopes. And then what you do is you put whatever you're going to put in there, like maybe your typed letter, maybe put a squishy ball, like maybe you must be stressed out, I would love to meet with you, and hopefully this relieves your stress, or a pen. We had a client that made these beautiful pens. She handcrafted these, and she put a pen, and she said, Paul, every time I put a pen, I got a response. So her pen became this amazing investment tool to meet all these people she wanted to meet, and guess what? 6 weeks later, she was an attorney. She got a job. 6 weeks because of this pen. So putting something tangible in there, again, creates this, I reached out to you, you're important to me, I want to meet with you. And it creates that genuineness that a lot of job seekers don't have by sending in their resume. So those get a lot of responses. You could call them. This might be tough if you've not done sales, phone sales. You could just call them out of the blue. And then the other one is get creative, right? Do you really want to meet this person? Do you really, really, really want to meet them? Because there's ways to meet anybody. We were talking to a vice president of sales. He was giving this amazing story. He's a good friend of mine. He tried to reach out to this company in Tacoma. He wanted their business. They would not respond. Like, they kind of responded, but then didn't respond at all. Like, let's say you send your resume, they start talking, but then they stop talking. So he's, again, really wants to meet these guys. So he goes to Hawaii on a personal trip. While he's in Hawaii, he gets these coconuts. Have you seen those, like, big coconuts? So he grabs a coconut, and he puts some glue on the bottom of the coconut, sticks some sand to it, and then he drew a palm tree, and then he drew like weather, like sun and a blue sky, like just like an art kind of thing like kids do. They play with coconuts. And then he goes to the post box and has the post box stamp that guy's address with like staples to this thing, and he sends it to the company. Now he has this contact information. He sends this, and he said, hey, thought of you in Hawaii, thought I'd send this to you. Then he calls the guy a week later. He says, hey, and the guy's like, oh my God, Brian, I got the coolest gift in the mail from you. This thing has become the office, the talk. Everyone's coming saying, what is this thing? And like, where'd you get that from? He's like, that's a huge acorn, by the way. He thought it was an acorn, not a coconut. And so anyway, that set into, hey, let's sit down. So the guy that's gone from like not talking to him at all to saying, let's sit down. And he said, Paul, we got one of the biggest. It was a $30 million contract from a coconut. Isn't that amazing? Like, how bad do you want to meet the decision maker? Let me give you something you can do. We had a client that wanted to meet the head chef of Columbia Hospitality. This is a big resort management company. She can't reach him on LinkedIn, phone call. I don't know if she tried U.S. mail or FedEx package. Here's what she decides to do. She finds a live carrier service that delivers live animals, like they do a day delivery of live animals, like you can ship a cat to somebody or a dog or whatever. She buys a lobster and sticks a lobster in this and has this delivered. Now, they have to get signature, so the chef gets this thing. He then calls my client and says, sorry I've been out of touch, sorry I've been so hard to reach. He said, I got this irresistible package from you because I had to open it because there was something clawing in it. So he opened it because, like, what package do you ever get where there's something physically clawing in it? So that was one. And then we had someone that wanted to meet Microsoft, not us, and I'm saying us as figure of speech. This guy, now this is before 9/11, don't do this now, and today is 9/11, that's funny. Before 9/11, what he did is he sent a package to Microsoft. He wanted to work in the PR department. So he sends this giant box to the PR department. So they open this box, and when they do this, Jack in the Box shoots out, and it has a photo of him stuck to the little spring with him holding his resume saying, hire me. And they hired him. They're like, wow, what a creative PR idea, right? Again, creativity is the limit, right, to can I get in front of these decision makers, right? Get in front of the decision makers of the companies that you want to work for, right? You can't do this for everybody. So to kind of wrap everything up, decide to be happy. I think happiness is a choice. I want to be happy. I deserve to live a happy life, fulfilling life. There's only certain companies that are going to make me happy. Before I can look at the companies, I need to know what would make me happy as like my personality, right? What's my personality? What's my family situation? What's my long-term career path? Figure out your values. You said job security, money. Stick to those, right? If that's what you want, stick to those. If you don't know your values, go figure them out, right? You got to say what's most important to me. Now that you have that, there's only certain companies. We're going to narrow that down to certain companies that are a good fit for those values, other companies that are not. Now we need a list of decision makers. And you have those in front of you because we gave you the slides, right? You have a list of decision makers, and you can get introduced to these people. You can reach out, the word coffee, right? Set up these meetings. And then you would obviously have a good meeting, hopefully, and we'd be happy to train you on that. We have resources to do that. And then that's it, right? You would get in front of the people you want to get in front of, and that could optimize your job search process. And the successes I'll share is our clients are averaging 3 months, right? Talking about our clients, we have 3 complimentary resources for you that we'd love you to take advantage of. We do this every month, so if you are out of town right now on the webcast, you're welcome whenever you're in Seattle to come do this. We have people as far as Portland driving in, and we have people as far as Atlanta flying in. One's called the Career Search Optimization Seminar, which is how do you optimize your career. We talk a lot about the job market, what's going on with different HR hiring practices, et cetera, and how to take advantage of that. We actually dissect different companies and show you what's happening behind the scenes, like how they're researching on Facebook, what they do with your LinkedIn profile. It's pretty fascinating FBI-looking stuff. We have a Prolango Career Mixer, which is a monthly event. It is free. It's sponsored by sponsors. They pay for it. It's not a job fair. It's like a career mixer. You have a chance to mix with decision makers. And if you want to meet different companies, Sound Transit, Boeing, Path, Gates Foundation, Microsoft, Boeing, whatever, these guys come and they spend time here, and you have a chance to have a drink with them and get to know them. And the last but not least is we have a career management LinkedIn group. So if you're looking for best practices on anything career management related, job search related, we have that group. And these are all 3 free resources we'd love you to take advantage of. Any questions before I do a couple of LinkedIn demos? Now we have a short period of time, so I'm going to do the demos quickly. But what are your questions on this process? Yes, ma'am. Can we wait for the microphone? Thank you. And any questions for the audience, guys, in the webcast? If you're watching this, anything we can answer for you, this would be a great opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
So I think a lot of the networking works really well when you already have a career. But what about when you don't have like a big track work record?
Yeah.
So what do you talk to them about?
Okay. So that's the actual conducting an informational interview, which unfortunately we didn't cover today. And we cover these trainings, so please come take advantage of them. But the short answer to your question is, if you don't have a huge career track record, what you want to do is you want to impress them based on your personality, right? So you hopefully have the basic legal requirements. You have the ability to practice law in Washington State. You passed the bar. So you have the credentials that they would need. But now it's, if we can't compete on expertise, let's compete on personality. If you're someone that's irresistible because you're just so amazing and you're willing to learn and you're ambitious and you want to make them successful and they see you more of like the mentee and they can mentor and groom you to that next level, that's what you would focus on in the conversation. as opposed to, let's say, you're super senior in your career and you've done a lot of stuff. You'd focus on the accomplishments you've had and how you could have very similar accomplishments for their firm or their corporation as well. Great question. We have a question on the webcast.
What are your recommendations for individuals that want to move to the Puget Sound region and are located out of town?
That's a great question. It's really hard to get a job in the Puget Sound when you are not physically capable of meeting people in the Puget Sound. We have been able to assist some of our clients get jobs out of state. Let's say they're going to California, going to Texas, going to New York City. But my strong advice here is if you can find a way to schedule a trip, maybe what you do is if you're coming to Seattle to visit relatives or something like that, try to book meetings back to back. In fact, you can reach out in advance, and when the decision maker says, I'd love to meet with you, say, hey, I happen to be in town on Wednesday. What does your 2 o'clock look like? And then what I would do is I would try to do that mass networking, and that's where you're going to be really, really focused. Who is the firm I want to work for? Who's the corporation? Who's that right person? Because you're only going to get a few chances. The other thing you could do is phone calls, but it's so hard to build rapport over the phone. There's no facial expressions. There's no body language. So ideally, as much as in person, and then phone is the other technique. Any other questions? Or what are your other questions? Was this valuable to you? Could you use some of these? Yeah, that's good. All right, so let's do some demos. Oh, we have another question on the webcast.
What is your sense for the contract or part-time opportunities in the legal world right now?
Can you ask that question one more time?
So what is your sense for contract work or part-time opportunities in the legal world right now?
That's actually a great question. It's sometimes easier to get, for example, let's pick Microsoft as a potential firm where you could be a contract legal attorney. It's sometimes easier to get those jobs than it is to get full-time jobs. And what I love about those is a full-time Microsoft job, we're talking 5 interviews, 1 hour each, and it takes a month for them to decide, versus contract is 3 interviews, 30 minutes each, and they decide like that. Like you can hire. And once you get your foot in the door of Microsoft, as long as you don't just focus on your job, but you also focus on building relationships within the company, that could be your way in. So I highly recommend part-time and contract. Yes?
2 more questions. What are your recommendations for older lawyers without a book of business?
Without what?
A book of business. Without
a book of business. Focus on what you can do for them, not so much of what you're bringing to the table. So maybe you have a certain expertise in a way of helping them with a specific skill set that they have a gap on. So if they're a group of employment attorneys, but not a whole lot of them know much about labor law, and that's your expertise, say, hey, maybe I can help you get more clients if we could add labor law to your resume.
When is your next career mixer?
Our next career mixer is October 15th, and it will be on our website very, very soon. And again, it's a free event. We have roughly 300 to 400 professionals attend every month. And so come several times, meet different decision makers, and hopefully it's useful to you. Awesome. And then our career seminar, because you guys are actually here, and anyone that from the webcast that could join us, our career seminars are actually next week. And we do 3 different days, so to fit different schedules. And again, those are free because they're sponsored as well. All right, so a couple demos, and then we'll call it good. All right, so I'm logged on to LinkedIn. We talked about a couple of different things today. We talked about company research. One of the fastest ways to do company research is a tab called Companies, which is to the right-hand side of your inbox, right? There's a Companies tab. Click on that. And if you know a name of a company, then type in Amazon or Boeing or Weyerhaeuser. But if you don't know a name of a company, what you can do is type in a keyword. So let's say I'm looking for a company that is in the graphic design business, right? These guys do graphic design. I'm going to hit search on this. There's 56,000 search results, and that's really hard to target as potential companies. If you look on the left-hand side, there is a location section. And if you're looking for jobs in the Seattle region, you obviously type in Seattle, and you can do international searches as well. So I'm going to type in Greater Seattle. And that limits it to 384. That's not bad. There's 384 companies that are my potential prospects. Are there further ways to narrow this down? If we scroll down a little bit, you'll see a section called Industry. So yes, they do graphic design, which 101 of them are a graphic design firm. But check this out, 87 of them are a marketing and advertising firm. Maybe that's what you really mean when you said the word graphic design. There's 22 of them that are information technology companies. So kind of narrow maybe by industry. You can narrow it by company size. So 194 of these companies are 1 through 10. only one of them is between 1,000 to 5,000 employees, right? So that's one way to narrow it down. And then the other one is by fortune. Like maybe there's a certain, you want to work for Fortune 500, and it seems like none of these graphic design firms in the Seattle region are Fortune anything, right? But as you look at other industries, that's one way of narrowing down companies, okay? Since we're super short on time, I want to show you that group feature we talked about. How do you contact people for free? So I'm going to pretend I went on Heidi's profile. I went to the very bottom of her profile, and she was a member of the Washington State Bar blah, blah, blah association, right? Like whatever group, subgroup she was a member of. I then joined that group, and now she went from a second, third degree connection to a group connection. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that group. So let me grab a group like, let's say, Link Seattle. Link Seattle. There we go, Link Seattle. Now, there's a search box here, so I'm going to hit search. And then I'm going to pick someone that I don't know. Let's type in like Eric, for example. And for those of you on budget, you're going to love this, and you're welcome to send me $1 royalty on every time you use this technique. Okay, so check this out. So we got to search for members. So to search for members, I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer. You got to actually click on the number of members. That's the hidden feature we talked about. They used to have a way where you could search the people directly. You can't do that anymore. They're actually buried under members, under that thing. So you got to click on that button, then the number of members. That's going to bring up a search the members feature. And so you're going to type in the name Eric. Let's find an Eric that I don't know. In this case, I would type in Heidi Seligman, right? I would type that in. But so let's pick up Eric I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Okay, so here is a Eric Goetz. Do you see him? So if I right-click him and open him in a new tab, I want to show you something. You're going to love this. Do you see it says send Eric InMail? You guys see that? So remember the same group, but it says send him an InMail. It shouldn't be like that. Well, because LinkedIn can monetize it, why not? And yes, you're a group member, but if you go to his profile, if you go to Heidi's profile, you will have to pay $10 to reach out to her. But if you go in that hidden secret section we talked about, check this out. There is a button right here that says send message. Do you guys see that? That is free. And nobody knows where this thing is. So people are sending out emails to people saying, I would love to meet with you. And again, every time you do that, it's $10 a message. I just showed you the free way. All right, any final questions? I know we have like a minute or so left. Any final questions? I hope this presentation made an impact on you and that you will go home today and you will sit down with your spouse, your children, maybe by yourself, and you'll say, what is most important to me? And make that a priority in a job search. And once you know what's important to you, you have that purpose, you have that vision, you're excited, everything else will just flow with the strategies. Guys, thanks so much for the opportunity.